Now, kickoff for the Men's FIFA World Cup is just around the corner, but several controversies are already clouding the tournament. Africa's top referee, Oman Artan, will miss the World Cup after the U.S. denied his visa, citing vetting concerns. Unease is also growing in the U.S. following reports on the possible presence of ICE agents at World Cup events. Jules Boykoff, author of Red Card and a former professional football player, says this political backdrop could tarnish how the World Cup is remembered. He joins Hari Sreenivasan to explain.
Bianna, thanks. Jules Boykoff, thanks so much for joining us. Each World Cup, we have a conversation somewhat similar to this. We talked before the last World Cup in Qatar about the challenges, about labor violations, what Qatar had to do to get that World Cup on. Before that, it was Vladimir Putin. And, what does it mean to have this on Russian soil, so to speak? And I wonder now, in this context, you write that the 2026 World Cup is not only the most politically combustible tournament in modern history, but also on track to be the most polluting. Let's talk about the political combustion right now. What makes you say that?
Well, I would say the through line between those three tournaments that you just mentioned, Russia World Cup in 2018, Qatar in 2022, and the United States, Canada, and Mexico in 2026, is the idea of sports washing. When political leaders use sports to their political advantage in order to make themselves look important or legitimate on the world stage while deflecting attention from chronic social problems at home and setting up opportunities for political and economic and diplomatic advancement. And that term was used a lot, sports washing, when people were talking about Russia and Qatar. And for good reasons. They were trying to use that event to deflect attention and make political and economic gain. But that's definitely what's happening in the United States as well. I mean, President Trump has made it clear, he said it many times in public, that the World Cup and the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles are crucial to his legacy. And so I think when you have someone like that who is set on using sport to his political advantage in charge, and I think it must be said, I mean, he's a highly erratic individual. He can be impulsive at times, and he loves attention. That really sets up a recipe that could create problems, for this event. Normally, people turn their attention to the sport at hand once the event finally starts and we put those problems behind us. I'm not so sure that's going to happen this time around.
So right now, one of the big conversations is about how safe the United States might be for fans from other countries, right? Because we still have a kind of a very differing immigration policy, visa policy, depending on where you're from, what country you're from. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons told the House panel in February, ICE specifically Homeland Security investigations is a key part of the overall security apparatus for the World Cup. We're dedicated to securing that operation and to ensuring the safety of all participants and visitors. What does that mean in practice for someone who is coming from overseas?
Really important question. I mean, I think this points to the wider paradox around this event. On one hand, it's the biggest World Cup ever, 48 teams, all these people coming from around the world. In some ways, in that sense, it's the most inclusive. On the other hand, we've got a very difficult situation in regards to immigration in the United States, where the Trump administration is making it clear that some nations are simply not welcome. Then if you do get here, you have immigration and customs enforcement that, let's be honest, has been marauding through neighborhood after neighborhood in the United States. Masked up, they've actually killed people who are U.S. citizens. They've detained for long periods of time Native Americans. I mean, the level of irony there is off the charts. And so there's serious concern that tourists coming to the United States might experience hassle from immigration and customs enforcement, especially because, as you rightly point out, people at ICE have said they will be carrying out their duties at this tournament. Another thing I think is worth considering is that while all the global media are focused in these host cities on what's happening there, you'll have pockets of people that live in this country who are wanting to support the countries where they came from, Haiti, Iraq, you name it, in places far away from where the global media are, in the small corners of Wisconsin. I'm very concerned that that will essentially be a magnet for ICE, where they might engage in raiding there, where you have people just having fun and enjoying the tournament.
A DHS spokesperson told The Gothamist international visitors who come to the United States legally should have no concerns, but warned that those who enter the country illegally may become targets for immigration enforcement. The spokesperson would not say whether ICE would conduct immigration arrests at the World Cup. One of your concerns has also been about the carbon footprint of these games versus previous ones. FIFA, they say they want to be net zero by 2040. But researchers are saying that this particular tournament is going to generate more than 9 million tons of CO2, nearly double what recent World Cups have. Just kind of put that in perspective for us. I mean, I know that we've got games now that are in Canada and Mexico and the United States, and there's people flying from all over to these different countries and flying back and forth in between the games.
The reason why you're seeing scientists jumping up and down about those jaw-dropping emissions numbers that you mentioned is because fans need to travel over vast geographical expanse to attend matches in Mexico, Canada, and the United States. Also, the United States just simply doesn't have a strong train system. And so people are going to be flying from match to match, thereby jacking up the emissions. But in the bigger picture, FIFA has a real problem with greenwashing, which is to say talking a big green sustainability game, but not actually following through on the ground. We saw this in Qatar, where they said they were going to be this sustainable game, carbon neutral game. That definitely didn't happen. What you can say about Qatar is that once you got there, you could go around to the different matches on the metro and by car and have your emissions be relatively low. That's not the case here. So while we have stadiums that were built, thereby keeping the carbon emissions low, people's travel budgets are going to be really high. So I think this is another example, though, of FIFA saying one thing and doing another. And I think people in the United States, Canada, and Mexico have seen numerous examples of this in the lead into the tournament.
The head of FIFA, the president, Gianni Infantino, said about this, whether we speak about climate, human rights, diseases, or disabilities, we are committed, FIFA, to play our part in respect of the fact that FIFA has 211 member associations representing the entire world. For people who don't follow FIFA and World Cup soccer very much, tell us a little bit more about Gianni Infantino.
Gianni Infantino became the president in FIFA after the huge corruption scandal that hit the world's governing body for soccer in 2015 and 2016. He promised that he would clean up the game and make it more equitable. Unfortunately, he's essentially cranked up the FIFA greed machine in a lot of ways. He is on track to make more than $11 billion from this tournament alone, making it the most revenue of any sporting event in sporting history. Now, Mr. Infantino, if you asked him about it, he would say that we'll redistribute that money around the world. And there is some truth to that. He does send the money around to different football associations, or FAs, around the world in all the 211 member states. But the other truth is that Mr. Infantino makes pretty good money himself. He just gave himself a raise. He makes $6 million a year. If you're on the powerful FIFA Council that was supposed to be this big reform mechanism, you can make between $250,000 and $300,000 a year for simply attending 2 to 4 meetings. Pretty sweet work if you can get it. But the function of that is that you have a huge portion of FIFA membership that has very little interest in raising uncomfortable questions about greenwashing or sports washing. And instead, they have an incentive to kind of go along with what Mr. Infantino wants. And what Mr. Infantino wants right now is to be as cozy as he can with U.S. President Donald Trump, handing him a peace prize and doing a whole lot more.
There were headlines here about not just the money that FIFA might hand to host cities or host countries, but the actual costs. Like, I'm having this conversation from New York, and we're hosting the absolute finals, right? And the costs of all the police over time and the transport infrastructure is being borne by the cities and states where these things are happening. So where's the money going to FIFA, and why are citizens here paying to host this?
FIFA's core business model involves socializing the costs of the World Cup and privatizing the benefits of the World Cup. And by socializing the costs, I mean taxpayers in New Jersey and New York, they'll pay for security, they'll pay for the medical teams. Hey, I live in Oregon, and as a taxpayer, I help fund security for this event. The local bodies in all these host cities are also responsible for these fan fests that are supposed to be inclusive. And these are very difficult things to monetize. Whereas FIFA, the way they draw up their contracts, they take in all the money from the broadcasters. They take in all the money from the corporate sponsors. They actually take in money from concessions on site at these World Cup venues. They take in the money from the parking. And so you can see that the way the contracts were drawn up this time around were very in favor of FIFA and very different from 1994, the last time the United States hosted the World Cup, where they got a bigger slice of the money pie.
One of the things that really, I think a lot of people are noticing, not just in the United States, but around the world, is you take a game that is arguably the most accessible game on the planet. You've got barefoot kids that can kick anything spherical on whatever surface they're playing on, right? And you now have ticket prices for the finals that are soaring on the secondary market that, are just tens and tens of thousands of dollars, not to mention getting here and so forth. I mean, what is it about this game that has made it at the same time the most accessible thing and the most inaccessible thing?
Well, there's no question that soccer is the people's game. I was recently in Sarajevo, where I went to a museum of genocide there, and there were numerous exhibits where people talked about how soccer got them through the siege in Sarajevo and how people were huddled around the television watching in black and white at the 1994 World Cup. So it's enormously important to people. It helps people get through difficult times. FIFA is taking advantage of that. You can, if you want to talk about ticket prices, they are making so much money off the backs of soccer lovers around the world, essentially turning the people's game into a game for the rich, for plutocrats. So they have their market where they are selling tickets for the final at around $11,000 a pop. In Qatar, just a few years ago, 4 years ago, the top ticket was going for $1,600. FIFA is using what they call dynamic pricing. Sounds kind of nice, Hari. I like dynamic stuff. This is not nice if you're a ticket buyer. I mean, that just means that they're trying to squeeze the very maximum that they can out of you, make you pay as much as you possibly can stand. Then there's the secondary market. So when people buy tickets and resell them, there is no cap on that in the United States. So I saw a ticket online going for like $11 million the other day. Now, I don't know if they're going to sell it for $11 million, but if they did, FIFA would get more than $3 million for that because they take 15% from the buyer in the secondary market and 15% from the seller. So they've actually created an incentive to have ticket prices go through the roof.
In response specifically to the high ticket prices, the FIFA president said we have to look at the market. We are in the market, which entertainment is the most developed in the world, so we have to apply market rates. FIFA said to the Wall Street Journal that they have worked collaboratively with host cities to lower costs and provide flexibility, including waiving certain hosting obligations. Even with that, we're seeing the prices where they are?
Yeah, try telling that to New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, who I thought was very eloquent in explaining recently why she decided to initially charge $150 for train ticket prices to get to the venue in New Jersey. Those prices did go down, but as she explained, FIFA gives her and New Jersey taxpayers $0. And so that put her and other people that are providing transportation around the United States in a very difficult position where they either put that on the back of the taxpaying public or they put that on the back of the people that are here to watch the World Cup. She went with the latter path and got a lot of flack for it, but I think she actually made the right move, trying to explain to the public that FIFA has set this situation up and that they're relying on the backs of people in these various host cities and not giving much in return except for the beautiful game. But really, it's not FIFA that gives us that. It's these incredible football, soccer players from around the world that do that.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about kind of what's happening right now in the world, especially let's talk specifically about Iran. I mean, they had made it to the games. They're not that far below where the U.S. is ranked in the overall standings. And at the same time, we've got a host nation that is actively bombing a participating country. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened.
It absolutely has not happened before, where one of the host countries for the World Cup was actively bombing and threatening war crimes against one of the nations. And it's really put a pall over this World Cup. If President Trump and the White House were thinking strategically, they would be welcoming the Iranian team with open arms. Because if you look recently at what the Iranian men's and women's national soccer teams have done when they've gone abroad, they've used the opportunity to raise questions and even critiques about the government back home in Iran. In 2022, for example, Team Melli, as the Iranian team is known, didn't sing the national anthem, thereby sending a message to activists back home that they too were critical of the way the government was running things in Iran. Then more recently, when the Iranian women's team went to Australia, you had a couple of them claiming political asylum. Again, a tough message for the Iranian regime to receive at home. So rather than opening his arms, President Trump, to the Iranians and saying, you're welcome here, and hoping maybe they'll provide him with some propaganda, he's done almost the very opposite. He's hinted that they might not be able to be safe if they come here. He said negative things about them in the press. This is very much against what the World Cup is supposed to be about. I mean, Gianni Infantino talks a lot about how football unites the world, but when it comes to the way President Trump has dealt with Iran, it really is more fracturing the world.
You know, as you think about this, and you've written this pointed critique, and you've said that you're kind of saying this out of love for the game. What do you hope happens?
Well, it's true. I did. It's sort of a love letter that is grounded in a deep critique. But you're right. It's a love letter for soccer and its power, because I've seen soccer build community. I've seen soccer fortify camaraderie. And what I hope from this tournament is that people around the United States open their hearts to visitors from abroad and say to those folks, look, the entire United States cannot be distilled to Trumpian MAGA. We love people coming to this country. You are welcome here. Hope you have a great time when you're here. I hope the football, the soccer, is at a very high level. I hope that we see some of the best matches that we've seen in a long time. But I'm also kind of hoping that some of the players that are on these various rosters take the opportunity to mention this broader context that you and I have been talking about, and to embrace the reality that soccer is politics by other means. And this is an opportunity for them to speak out about the important issues of our time. We are living in an incredible political moment. This World Cup is plunked down right smack in the middle of all this intensity. But perhaps out of that, some of these players and fans can start to construct a more positive future moving forward.
Professor of Political Science at Pacific University and author of Red Card, Jules Boykoff, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.